I'm Malachi Talak, and I'm going to be speaking about my book 60 Degrees North this afternoon, which is a travelogue. I made a series of journeys to countries around the 60th parallel, starting and finishing in my home, which is Shetland. There are some amazing places along the 60th parallel. So the first place that I visited was southern Greenland, which is just an incredible landscape and amazing culture that has existed there for a long time, and it was fascinating to visit there. And other places too, such as central Canada, which was a really wonderful community called Fort Smith, just in the middle of the boreal forest. I think the main thing that connects these places is the fact that in the north the landscape and the climate are challenging, and so people are more aware of their places than they are in more comfortable climates further south. So the way that people live and the way that they think is still very much influenced by the landscape, by the climate, by these kinds of things. Something that I was trying to bring to the fore in the book was this idea of the connection between people and the places where they live, and the things that most people these days take for granted or don't notice. So the weather and the kind of birds and animals that live around us. But if you live in a more difficult, a more challenging place, these are really important to how you live. And I think it's very interesting to begin to notice some of these things again. Greenland is probably the most challenging place along the 60th parallel because of the cold and because of the remoteness from centres of population elsewhere. And of course it's somewhere that people tried and failed to live in the past. The Icelandic people who settled 1,000 years ago only managed to live there for a few hundred years before they died out. Because the climate is so difficult and because eating can be a real challenge. And of course the Inuit are the ones who learned how to deal with those challenges and to live there quite comfortably and successfully. At the moment I'm quite happy staying home. I don't actually like traveling that much, so I'm very happy to have finished the book, and now I can live with the comforts of home.
I'm Kathleen Winter, and my book is Boundless. It's the story of a journey through what we call the Northwest Passage in 2010. I was invited at the last minute to go on a ship, and what I saw there moved me so much I felt compelled to put it down in words. I was invited as a kind of last resort. There was a writer who was supposed to go on board along with archaeologists and scientists of different kinds, and this writer couldn't go, so somebody gave them my name, and I got a phone call saying, would you like to go through the Northwest Passage next Saturday? And I said, my bags are already packed. The most enthralling thing about that whole journey is the fact that on the land, what you have is a three-dimensional history book in which the words are made of bones and old buttons and kettles that have holes in them that are left from dead explorers, and pegs for drying caribou that the Inuit used. Everything is still there in layers and layers of time, and you can see it all, and you can read history right there in objects. Translating what I saw and felt into words was harder than anything I've ever written before. I had to paint pictures first, because the land is wordless, the animals are wordless. The history as it presented itself to me, and the present, the ongoing power of the land, is all wordless. So I had things scribbled in a really dissolved and amorphous form. It took me 2 years to be able to write anything consecutive or anything that made sense in words. It was really hard. I love writing fiction and poetry, but I have a journalism degree and I like bearing witness to things. So every now and then I just can't help it. I have to write nonfiction. I do have a small book that is the story of a sad event in my life. It was when my first husband became ill and died, and that was, like Boundless, published without my intentionally starting out to write a book. Going on that journey took me to the homeland of the Inuit people of the far north in Canada, and it made me want to explore my homeland to see the north of Scotland, where my grandmother is from and where my dad is from, and that's where I'm going after the festival. I'm taking this opportunity to go backpacking with a one-man tent with my daughter. She has her own little tent. We don't know where we're going to go, but we're going to go for 3 weeks walking in Orkney and around there. I walked around yesterday. I had ice cream and I bought books. I bought Anne Enright's new book and I'm halfway into it. And I'm really looking forward to meeting Malachy Tallaght. I don't know if I've said his name right, but I have read his book and I was really captivated by it.
Yeah, well, I really liked it, and I found it interesting because I've also been in the north, so I could kind of relate a bit to the landscapes they were talking about and what they felt and the people who they met, because we planned to see some native people, although we didn't actually because they weren't in the area where we were. Yeah, we went with the school trip. There was 12 of us, and we went up to Arctic Norway, where we hiked for 30 days with all of our stuff on our rucksacks. They were like 25 kilos and I mean we went through the mountains and we experienced the Arctic sun, and it was really amazing. Going onto a glacier and having day walks on the glacier when we had all our ice gear with kind of ice axe and crampons, and we were all roped up, and that was quite amazing. We got so hungry because we couldn't carry enough with us because we were taking everything with us. So we could never really eat as much as we wanted. And the rations were kind of tiny and not very nice, so we were always hungry, which was quite hard. I did actually, because I noticed when I was there, the light, I did feel, because it was light all the time, it didn't actually get dark, it was very different to what I'd experienced, and they both talked about the light. And it did feel kind of like the sky felt kind of bigger in a way. It was yeah, I love the book festival, it's great.
Yeah, I found it really inspiring. I'm from up in the Shetland sort of area, as well. So I've grown up there, so I quite like kind of northern things as well. I'm quite into outdoor, pursuits and things too. But found it, really interesting. Both of the talks. Yeah, because I quite like sort of polar exploration books and that kind of thing as well too. So the wildness and the light and the landscape, really feel it's something that I connect with a lot. So, they talked about small communities and things, so sometimes they can be difficult as well as, some things can be challenging as well as being welcoming too. So I think sometimes it can take a longer time to get to know, but then once you have, then it's probably the biggest thing I would miss would be just like the space around about really too, and the light. Because there's more sea and sky than land in a place like Fair Isle in Shetland. So yeah, I always come just about every year, at least go to one or two things, and yeah, it's a very inspiring place to be around.